Peter Drucker is famous for having quipped that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And the Schuitema Caring Growth thematic is a holistic approach to dealing with the problem of culture, because it's rooted in the conviction that the intent to give accounts for personal excellence, team excellence, leadership excellence, and organizational excellence. If you consider the issue of personal excellence, for example, then what people generally want from their lives is security, fulfillment, power, and harmony. But people very often don't realize that these things are an inside job. Because if you look at your engagement with the world, in any situation you're confronted by the world around you, and you can construct your intent on one of two variables. You can either construct your intent on what you're getting, or you can construct your intent on what you're giving. If you base your sense of security and fulfillment on what you're getting, because the world rarely gives you what you want at that particular point in time, you'll stay discontented and insecure. Whereas if you construct your security and fulfillment on the quality of what you're giving at any given point in time, because you've always got control over that, you'll be secure and fulfilled. In terms of the issue of power, if you want something from somebody else, that person's ability to withhold what you want makes them powerful and you weak. So it cultivates a weakness. Whereas if you construct your intent on what you're giving, because you've always got control over that, you'll always be powerful. Further to this, if you want something from somebody else, not only are they able to manipulate you and you're therefore vulnerable to them, but precisely because you're trying to get something out of them, they're vulnerable to you. And if you're vulnerable to them and they're vulnerable to you, you're basically threatening to each other, so you'll have conflict. If you shift your intent to what you can be giving to somebody, not only do they lose their power over you, in other words, you become safe from them, but precisely because you're trying to be helpful to them, they safe from you. And if you safe from them and they safe from you, you'll have a harmony. Now, this issue of harmony then obviously spills over into how teams work, because teams succeed when members of the teams are there to set each other up to succeed. Very little of the work that happens on the field in a professional soccer game is about somebody scoring. Actually, most of the work is concerned with somebody trying to set somebody else up to score. So this intent to set your colleague up to succeed, this really is what accounts for successful teams. And this intent to give also affects how leaders operate. Unfortunately, most leaders are of the view that leadership is about achieving a result through people, but we have an inverse view. We say leadership is actually about achieving people through results. And the rationale for this is again appropriate if you consider soccer. The coach's job is not to achieve a result or to play a game. That's what players are there for. The coach's job is to coach the player. However, the coach cannot coach the player if he doesn't know what's happening on the field and he doesn't know what's happening on the scoreboard. But it doesn't make those two things his job. It makes those two things his means to do his job, which is to coach the player, which means the coach doesn't use the player to get a job done and to achieve a result, uses the result as his means to enable the player. The intent to give in both colleagues and leaders in the organization rolls up into the success of the organization. Supply exists for demand, sellers are there for buyers, and companies exist for customers. In other words, when your whole organization is orientated towards the market, your organization is healthy, which suggests then that the intent to give is really the essence of successful organizations and rolls up into the issue of success. Even if we try to account for success on the basis of something as simple as the production of a surplus or a profit, we have a little analogy to help us understand what that means. We call this the story of the three bakers. So let's say we have three bakers who collaborate to bake a cake, and at the end of the month, each baker takes a slice of the cake home to feed their families, and there's a slice left. We would call that slice the surplus. And that surplus only exists because the total cake that was baked was bigger than what each individual took home. In other words, collectively, these people gave more than what they took. They produce a surplus and thus succeed when the average person in the business gives more than what they take in pursuit of the group's objectives. So we can therefore conclude that the essence of all work around culture is really about unleashing the intent to give, because that accounts for the personal excellence of the individual, the excellence of how teams operate, also the excellence of leadership, and finally the overall excellence of the enterprise. At Schuitema, we work in all four of these areas. We work in the area of personal excellence. We provide individuals with the tools to become secure and fulfilled. Also provide processes that enable peers to set each other up to succeed. We enable leaders to care for and grow their subordinates so that they're fundamentally there to give rather than get from their subordinates. And we also help people to build enterprises that make a contribution to the world. And we do this by offering 4 kinds of services: a diagnostic service, a consulting service, a training service, and a coaching service. And we have done this all over the world. We've done this in 27 countries. We have 4 operating businesses in the organization: the mothership in South Africa, and then 3 other businesses, one based in Pakistan, one in Sweden, and one in Australia. And then finally, we have a hugely diverse client base that we've cultivated over the last 30 years of operating. Thank you very much.